What's going on, boys? Today we're discussing the most destructive food for your physique. So this isn't necessarily a food or a category necessarily, but this is a combination of macros, which is carbs plus fat. I mean, it's kind of common sense, but it needs to be spelled out for some people because some people don't realize that it's this combination that's absolutely devastating and deadly for, your physique transformation progress and just, progress in the gym and cutting. I mean, even just like performance, this can really make you suffer. It's kind of common sense, but let's just name a few foods that are aiding in making you fat or making you skinny fat. That's just not like helping your physique, right? Pizza, carbs, fat. Ice cream, fat. Sugar, which is carbs, fat, carbs and fat, right? Pastries, butter, they're loaded with oil, butter, whatever, sugar, right? So you're seeing the theme. Pancakes, sugar, fat. Donuts, sugar, fat. Pasta, fat, carbs. Fried rice, fat, carbs. Burgers, fat, carbs. And while there are ways to eat these foods in a lesser version or a protein variant, I still think that it's absolutely devastating for physique outcomes. And I know a lot of people would say, but wait, I thought it's calories in, calories out. That's all that matters, right? Calories in, calories out. I'm going to look exactly the same regardless of what I eat as long as my calories are lower. Wrong. There's a few things that are nuanced about calories in, calories out that aren't talked about and discussed by actual scientific literature, such as for fat loss, there's a thing that interferes with it called insulin resistance and sensitivity. It tells your body where to store fat and where to pull from first and last. So where to store it first, where to pull from first, where to store it last, and where to pull from last. Insulin resistance and insulin sensitivity control both of these mechanisms. And the composition of your weight loss will be different based on your insulin resistance. If you've ever met somebody that is skinny everywhere, but they have a gut, it is typically a result of high insulin resistance and low insulin sensitivity. So this is almost always conducive with or correlating to someone that has a high sugar intake diet, because inherently carbs and fat doesn't trigger this storing of in specific areas like your face and your love handles and your gut and your butt, right? They make you look like a worm body off of like Men in Black. This is not always inducive of carbs plus fat, because adiposity or lipogenesis, when your carb stores are full, this is where it gets dangerous. You eat a ton of potatoes, you eat a ton of pasta, a ton of rice. Now your carbs are full, or they're always full because you never work out, you never run, and you're just a fat person, right? So your carb stores are full. Now when you spike insulin, lipogenesis happens. And the thing is when your carb stores are not full, and in the opposing side, when your carb stores are not full, lipogenesis cannot occur. So what am I saying? I'm saying that if you eat above your caloric maintenance, you will not gain fat if these conditions are not met. If your carbohydrate stores are not full and you don't eat and you eat whatever and they still do not get full, it does not matter the composition of food. This is where calories in, calories out totally makes sense, and it works and it's true. But when your carbohydrate stores are full and you spike your insulin, now lipogenesis occurs, the mechanism in which you store adipose tissue, you gain adipose tissue, you're gaining fat. This is literally how the mechanism happens, is carb stores are full, then you add excess calories or you add triglycerides into the mix. Now, and you spike your insulin, you spike your insulin, everything afterwards, once the carb stores are full, are going to be stored as fat. This is why when you refeed, you only add carbs, which we'll get to here in a second. This is the fallacy of if it fits your macros. Because it doesn't paint the whole picture. So if you fill your calorie deficit, like a deep deficit, with fat plus carbs, like pizza, donuts, ice cream, now the pie chart that is protein and fats and carbs, now it gets skewed. Now it becomes much harder to hit your protein goal and remain in that specific caloric deficit because you've added a just not efficient, like a pizza or something like that. And here's another thing too. It not only is it not efficient for hitting correct macros and making sure that your macros are in a split that you want. Say you want 30%, 25-30% protein with 15 to 30% fat and then the rest carbs. Well, if you have a fat and carb put together, it's going to be much harder to hit that for two reasons. One, here's the thing that you got to think about. This is why the physique outcome changes. Say you have a pizza and you go, well, there's protein in pizza. Yeah, but where's that protein coming from? That protein's coming from bread. It's coming from cheese, which these sources of protein are not complete proteins, and they're going to drastically change how much muscle you hold on to. So when you go to lose weight, you will lose fat still if you're in a deficit, but you'll also lose muscle. And that's the big issue. That is the big issue when it comes to if it fits your macros, when it comes to having fat plus carbs and just eating whatever you want. That pie chart that I was just discussing with you, that where you have a set amount of protein, set amount of fats, and a set amount of carbs, now that becomes skewed and much harder to hit. And say you do hit your protein goal, well, now you spill over and now you're no longer in a caloric deficit, or you're no longer in the deficit that you want. Fat loss becomes much slower. Obviously, this goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyways. Muscle plays a huge role in how aesthetic your physique looks, and then it also plays a huge role in insulin sensitivity and resistance. So if you have all of your proteins coming from garbage sources and you fill your diet with a bunch of garbage, then it's going to be harder to hold on to muscle. It's harder to hold on to muscle, so then your insulin sensitivity and your resistance gets wrecked. Your insulin sensitivity and resistance gets wrecked. So now whenever you eat sugar and carbs, now you're a lot more likely to hold on to adipose tissue and gain fat. Now when you gain fat, now it's this like nice perpetual cycle of destruction that just absolutely wrecks your physique. So you could be in a caloric deficit and straight on your way like a bullet train to skinny fat. You could be losing weight on your way to just being skinny fat, rather than if you're fat and you're losing weight for the first time, you should be able to recomp. All you have to do is just build muscle or maintain the muscle that you do have. If you're like stocky, but you have a little fluff on you, or if you're already skinny fat, then you're just going to destroy the muscle you already have if you do not dial in your proteins and your macros, and then if you just eat whatever you want. So all that to say this, someone who eats whole foods and then they overeat potatoes, is not going to have the same body composition as somebody who eats their macros and eats everything, but then also has slices of pizza or donuts. Here's the real thing: sugar plus fat. That is the destroyer of insulin sensitivity and resistance. So like spaghetti, pizza, burgers, these aren't as inherently bad for you because of what I was just talking about with the insulin sensitivity and resistance. At least that roller coaster of destruction is kind of pulled off the table, as long as you're not like gorging yourself with this stuff and you're not eating it all the time. But it's like you put sugar into the mix with fat, sugar and fat, not a Gatorade, not rice cakes, not, these are things like pixie sticks, candy, anything that's non-chocolate candy virtually has no fat in it. It's just sugar. If you avoid all fat and have sugar, it's not as bad, because then you can run and you can just burn that all off, as long as you're not, as long as you're not gorging yourself and going overboard and filling up your carb stores and then spiking your insulin even more, because then lipogenesis does happen and it will turn those carbs into fat and you will gain fat and your physique will not be good. The outcomes won't be good. And so how you do a proper refeed is you're in a deficit, okay? You are in a deficit for 8 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever. And you notice, you're like looking at yourself and you're like, you know what? I'm actually looking like a little small, bro. What is going on? And then your performance in the gym is suffering. You're like, I can't do as many reps. I don't have the energy. And then you're tired all the time. These are telltale signs. I mean, I use the mirror. I'm to the point now where I can look in the mirror and be like, oh shit, I'm like getting really flat. Let me eat like 7. I'm sorry, I couldn't help it. God damn it. Let me eat potatoes, like 6 or 7 potatoes, and then get my refeed. No fat, no sugar, no insulin spike, like how sugar does. No, it's not any fat that I do gain. It's gonna be not just straight to my gut and my belly, right? But you don't, on a refeed, you're not gonna get fat. And if you do just potatoes, you're definitely not gonna get fat, because you're gonna walk around like your belly's about to pop, but you're still gonna be in a deficit. You're still gonna be, when I did my refeed, my last refeed was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. When I did my refeed, I was still in a deficit. I tracked all the calories, or all the macros. I think my refeed brought me up to 2,100. I was still negative 550, 600 that day, because of the steps that I had done, and then the running, and then the weightlifting, and then my NEAT. I was definitely like negative 600 still, because 2,100 calories is not. That was like 400 above my maintenance at the time, or my target deficit, which was like 1,700. And then I entered the deep cut, which is 1,480, like I am now. So when I go to refeed, I'll refeed with 5, 6, or 7 potatoes, and then still be in a deficit, just not near as steep, because I'm way lower weight. I'm breaking into the 150s. So when you refeed, no sugar, if you can help it. Clean foods. Here's my refeeds foods list. Potatoes, they're the GOAT. Non-fried rice, white or brown, whichever you fancy, whichever, if brown doesn't make you bloat and it makes you feel full, more power to you. Rice does nothing for me. I can eat as much rice and I will never feel full. It's so weird. Oatmeal, goated. Ezekiel bread. Any bread from the freezer will do, as long as it is real bread. Real bread has to be kept in the freezer, because if it's not in the freezer, then it will mold. So just to clarify that. Beans, black beans, red beans, if you're super gassy or whatever, red beans. If you can tolerate a lot of beans, black beans. Rice cakes are pure carbohydrates. They do have sugar, but It's not like it's not like candy, but they have no fat. All of these foods are inherently low fat, which is the key. So just to recap, if you fill your diet with pizza, cookies, cake, ice cream, burgers, fat plus carbs, it's going to be hard to hit your protein goal, adequate protein goal from animal sources that's bioavailable, and still keep that perfect pie chart and still hit a caloric deficit. Another thing that I didn't really mention, but I'm going to mention now, is that it will put you on an insulin roller coaster that is a bobsled to a bad physique. Also, when you spike insulin, you spike ghrelin. Ghrelin spikes with it automatically. If you have a chocolate cake, 2 hours later, your insulin's gonna, because of the insulin released, it's gonna drive your blood sugar really low, and then you're gonna feel like, oh man, I need to eat something again, and you're gonna be, guess what? It's not gonna be something, it's gonna be a craving, and you're gonna be craving another sugary sweet or something hyper palatable, because you just had something hyper palatable. You're not going to be craving your good food. You're going to be craving shit because you ate shit, and now it's making you, it puts you on the insulin ghrelin roller coaster of craving shit. Refeeds, when your check engine light comes on, you are flat in the mirror, your performance is suffering, and you're really tired, like to the point like, you know, it's like exhaustion, fatigue, like you know, listen to your body. You know, that's why I called it your check engine light. Do a refeed. Refeed with only carbohydrates. Your fat and protein should stay the same throughout your cut. Muscle plays a key role in how aesthetic you look and your insulin sensitivity and resistance. It is paramount that you don't lose muscle during a cut. If you incorporate fat plus carbs and you do not listen to me and you try to get proteins from fucking pizza, you're going to not get adequate protein. You will lose more muscle. You'll lose fat still, but you'll lose muscle. And that's a bobsled to skinny fat. You know, they say a bobsled to hell. Well, that's a bobsled to skinny fat. So good physique outcomes require whole foods and a calculated, meticulous approach, because you don't just accidentally fall into a six-pack and you don't accidentally fall into a good physique. I know there's a lot of confusion in the fitness industry because you got people who are on gear telling you advice, and you got people who are on peptides telling you advice. People are like, just eat the cake, bro, and just control yourself. Yeah, two people that are on fucking drugs that are needle cheek mutants telling you what you need to do, when in reality, you are natural, you don't take any drugs, so you need to be listening to someone like me that has gone in the path that you're going. I've already walked that way. And not only that, but I've followed the steps of the great men that have walked that way and followed the path and have gone before me. So you're just listening to me, and I'm just a voice of truth that's repeating a voice of truth that I heard. So, you know, with that said, I think I hit every head. You just, like I said, you're going to want to avoid carbs plus fat. You can do carbs plus protein, and you can do fat and protein. You can do any combination, but carbs plus fat, and really, when I say carbs, I'm talking about sugar plus fat. Those will destroy you. So, yeah, and if you can weasel and wiggle your way into one of these tasty treats without it being a carbs plus fat macro, so you can make a burger, a super lean 97.3 burger with, you know, a zero fat bun, like an Ezekiel bread bun, and then just vegetables, and then no sauce, and then like zero fat cheese. Cook, brother. I ain't got no qualms with that. I ain't got no problem with that. That's going to fit perfectly into your macros. That is what you need to be doing if you're going to do this bullshit. If you're going to do an ice cream, Ninja Creamy. Everyone talks about the Ninja Creamy. Use your protein powder or whatever. Make your own ice cream. Make it as low fat as possible. Zero sugar. Use the stevia, the monk fruit, the sucralose, whatever chemical, you know, Dexter's laboratory creation that you got to make, and do your thing. And if you can do that, great. it fits in your macros, it fits in the pie chart, the stars are aligned, that's awesome. But if you can't, and these, and you're like me, you can't do it, or you just like don't have the energy and you just want to stick to a strict diet or whatever, then again, you're just going to want to avoid the carbs plus fat, because it's going to really just train wreck your progress. I think I hammered it in enough. I hope I got through to some of you guys, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. And until next time, boys, peace.